Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Joe Perez. I'm a senior systems specialist and team leader at the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am thrilled and delighted to come and give one of the keynotes at the DAMA Edmonton Conference in November. They say it's cold in November. Well, hopefully, I will bring some warmth with my topic. Data denial or data driven, disaster or delight. I hope to challenge people to go from being in data denial to being data driven through dominance, relevance, significance, surveillance, and vigilance. My five-part framework hopefully will show everybody how to look, link, listen, leverage, and learn. And hopefully, it'll be something that you'll find useful and maybe even a little bit of entertainment and educational as well. So I was asked a few questions that I wanted to talk about. One of them is about a universal AI challenge. It's a really interesting topic. Winning the Gartner Ambassador of the Year award a couple of years ago and speaking in conferences around the globe has given me um, a bit of a unique perspective on the AI journey. The universal challenge that I see, one that often does indeed go unmentioned in all the technical buzz, is the problem of human dependency within the AI feedback loop. All right, I'll tell you what I mean by that. Look, everybody talks about the model training, the data quality, the scalability of the solution, that sort of thing. But if few people truly grapple the fact that without thoughtful, continuous human oversight and interpretation, AI systems can quietly become instruments of stagnation rather than innovation, which is what I want, what you want too, right? We tend to treat deployed AI models as though they were, I don't know, some kind of a black box or something, right? Set it and forget it. The way they used to say in the old Ron Popeil commercials back in the 70s in the US, it's been set up. We don't have anything to worry about. That is not true. For you see, as the world changes, the original assumptions, biases, and even the data that was used to build those models will decay. See, we need to focus on building systems that proactively prompt human leaders to ask challenging what if questions about the AI's output, right? Checking its assumptions against evolving reality. And also, it takes actively monitoring for any unintended social or ethical consequences. You know, the real challenge is establishing the discipline to manage the relationship with the AI, ensuring that the human element is actively questioning the machine, not just obeying it. Look, ensuring that we understand that it's supposed to be something that stimulates our creativity rather than stifling our creativity, right? Understanding that it's supposed to be an enhancement to our understanding and not a replacement. And once we get that mindset, ladies and gentlemen, that of fully, making sure we fully understand that and we fully adopt that mindset, I believe that, to the extent we can do that is the extent that we can start dealing with that universal challenge. Okay. Let's see about the skipped step. I've been asked that before about my five-part framework. So, in the look, link, listen, leverage, and learn framework that I'll be talking about, the step most frequently skipped, without a doubt, is the one that says listen. See, companies are excellent at the look part. That's analyzing and prioritizing your objectives. Okay. They can do the link part. That's finding and presenting and connecting the data. Okay. And at that point, they often rush to the leverage part. That's planning the strategy and putting it into practice. And then the last step, learn. That's measuring the results and repeating. But the one they skip, they fail to genuinely listen to the data. That's the L they skip. They don't prioritize it to their organizational mission, vision, and goals. Okay. They don't try to find the pattern in the data. They just simply don't listen to the stories that the data tells, particularly the stories that are coming from the qualitative side. Now, why does this matter? I'll tell you. One might think that listening has to do with reading the numbers, right? No, no, no. It's much more than that. It goes way beyond that. It's about understanding the context, the anomalies, the human narratives that are behind those metrics. For you see, when organizations skip that L, the listening step, what do? Well, they risk making decisions based on incomplete data um, or just surface level truths. Okay, they might see what happened, but they're going to miss the opportunity to understand why it happened from the perspective of their customers or their employees. Okay, this failure to integrate qualitative listening with quantitative looking, right, is going to create a sterile, incomplete picture. And that's going to lead to actions that might be technically correct, but strategically irrelevant. Nobody wants that. Look, if you don't listen to the context, well, guess what? The data you're acting upon is just noise waiting to become a regret. All right, finally, the most actionable technique. I've been asked about that too. So, um, the most actionable technique that attendees can walk away from my session I'm talking about, excuse me, what can be implemented immediately after you hear my keynote at the conference, which you got to come, right? Data denial or data driven, disaster or delight. That's where you got to be. So this is going to come straight from the listen step, the one that people skip that I talked about a minute ago. And it's practicing constructive uncertainty. You're going to have to come to my keynote to hear more about that. I'm not going to tell you all about it. But this practice comes from a lady named Jennifer Myries. Again, I'll talk about that later. So I'm going to keep you in suspense for now. All right. This practice is especially vital when a decision maker feels certain. I mean, absolutely certain, like absolutely sure, certainly certain that they're certain. Okay. That's pretty doggone certain if you ask me. Okay. Look, it involves deliberately changing exclamation points into question marks on their most strongly held data conclusions and assumptions, right? Don't take that assumption upon first glance or upon face value. Check the assumptions at the door, that kind of thing, right? When faced with an obvious course of action, you need to stop and ask yourself um, three simple questions. All right, they're pretty simple. They're challenging questions. They're simple but challenging, right? There's some things that are challenging, but they're really hard to do. Then there are some things that are really easy but challenging. No, no, no. This is both simple and challenging. All right, first question. What is one piece of data that could disprove this conclusion? All right. Second question. What is the human story that the data isn't showing? And last question. If I had to argue the opposite case, what would my evidence be? Right? Okay. See, that gives you some pause, doesn't it? And this deliberate pause forces leaders and others to bring hidden biases to the surface. That's really important. Not only that, but also to check those foundational assumptions. Okay. And when you do that, ladies and gentlemen, you come to the place where you start transforming potential snap judgments into robust decisions. I'm talking about robust risk mitigated decisions. And let me tell you something, the fastest path to making a better decision, especially one that's data driven, is always one that is paved with the questions you are certain that you didn't need to ask. That's my take on it, and that's what you're going to hear about if you come to the DAMA conference, the DAMA Edmonton conference in Edmonton, Canada in November. You do not want to miss this conference. I want to see you there. Do not miss it. Dr. Joe, signing out.